Hello, I'm Simon and welcome to Dark Abyss Miniatures. In this video, I'm going to show you how I painted my Tyranid army and talk to you about the difficult bits, the good bits, the bad bits, and all of that good stuff in between. So let's get some paint on. So I started off with a flesh contrast colour. This was thinned down 50-50 with medium because it was quite a strong flesh colour I was using, and I didn't want that strong of a flesh colour on this model. I was careful not to let it coffee stain or pull too much, and this was done over a gold grey spray paint base, which is basically a colour forge version of Grey Seer. Once I was happy with this Neuro Gaunt, I immediately got onto batch painting a few guys at a time. So here I'm just laying some flesh coat on a Termagant. I've got a few Termagants at a time, working on a Barb Gaunt. I found these models really challenging to paint at first because of the way the positioning is, or the posture of the, I can't even think of what the word is, but this is when I realized that these being the push fit models and I hadn't glued them together where possible, I could actually make myself a much easier life of this job. Why didn't I think of that? So once that was done, I got on to painting the blue chitin, and I started doing things like the Von Ryan Leapers and working on a few other models that I really liked that I thought were cool, as well as doing the Termagants and those horrible Barb Gaunt models as well. But again, just being careful not to let it pull too much in one area, which I did fail at quite badly. I've got some really bad coffee staining on these models. Then it was on to a pink for the like fleshy recessed bits that have got those little, they, it looks almost like tubing or something, but I just used a quite hot pink for this called Cardinal Purple, and then it was on to painting the metal. So metal was the claws, the hooves, and the teeth, and any like spiky bits really, I guess. And then to change things up a bit, I started painting the brain on the Neuro Tyrant, I think this guy is called. And I also did the brains on the Barb Gaunts when I actually realised that they had brains on them. And then after this, I went over all of those pink fleshy bits I mentioned earlier with the purple wash, and I also used that purple wash on the brains. And I've got to mention as well that I also put that Cardinal Purple, that initial shade pink paint in the teeth and everything as well. And then after that was dry, I came back in and I painted this over this little eye bit on the gun barrels and their eyes with a dark hot pink by Proacryl with some fluorescent pink pigment mixed in with it to give it some real punch. I didn't bother doing this with the other pink bits like the tubing and those fleshy areas because I didn't want those to stand out too much. I wanted to just bring some attention to the eyes. And then once that was done, and I apologise for the out of focus camera there, but I then just got on to doing the basing, which was a like dirty light brownish colour. It looks quite dark in this video, but it's actually a fair bit lighter, especially when you paint the base rims black. But I just washed this all over the models, and I could have done a lot more with these guys. There's so much more I want to do with them, and the coffee staining in places is quite bad. Right, so that army is done, and that was hard. I'm not going to lie. I wanted to get that army done in a week over a few hours a day with the concept of can I paint an army in 24 hours? And I managed it, but it took me several weeks. I got burnt out from this force because it just didn't interest me. And I also got burnt out because I'm not happy with the results of the army. I actually don't like this army very much, the standard of the painting. And if you want to get your army on the table nice and quick because you've got a tournament coming up or whatever, it's a good thing, right? Contrast works. But do you get amazing paint jobs that you're ultimately really happy with when using contrast? For me, it's a no, I'm afraid. I've had contrast paints for a while, but I like to use them to get a colour on really quick so that I can then see, right, this colour scheme I had in my mind, that colour doesn't really work with that. I need to change a few things. And contrast means you get it on really quickly so you can make your adjustments quickly. I also like it to be a good base. Certain colours like bright, vibrant reds work much better if you've gone over, if you've painted a contrast red on, say over a white, you then paint a contrast red on first and then hit it with a red. It really gives it some punch. But with contrast on its own, when I look at it really closely, I it kind of looks lifeless to me. And I think that's because it's like a semi-transparent and you're looking through to the primer. Using grey and white doesn't really help. I think something like a Wraithbone does help it come to life a little bit, but it all still looks pretty lifeless to me. And I really don't like this army. There's also a lot of coffee staining and stuff, which I did my best to try and avoid. And I've not had issues with coffee staining as much as I've had with this army with the contrast paint. And I think that's because I used the Colourforge spray rather than the Citadel stuff. So it's given me food for thought that the coffee staining to me has basically ruined the whole look of this army. So it's definitely something I'm going to have to fix in the future, which I will do for a future video. But my next project won't be speed painting. It's going to be a labour of love. Tell me about your ideas on how you tackle big projects and what you like and dislike about doing big projects like this. How do you get on with contrast paints? What techniques do you struggle with? And like, share, subscribe, and some of the products I've used, there's links in below. And even if you don't want to get anything that I've been using today, use the links anyway because it all helps and it doesn't cost you anything. I'll see you on the next one. Thank you for watching.